Welcome back to Book Shorts, the ultimate destination for thrilling book summaries that hit you fast and leave you wanting more. If you love dark, twisted fantasy stories where chaos reigns and survival is anything but guaranteed, then you're in. For a wild ride today, we're diving deep into This Inevitable Ruin by Matt Dinniman, a brutal, mind-bending entry in the dungeon crawler Carl universe that shatters every rule and sets the world on fire. But before we descend into the madness of fungal gods glitchy, reality, and one man's fight against the system, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss a story that will wreck your brain in the best possible way. Now let's get into it. Imagine a world where nightmares, our currency and chaos isn't a glitch, but the core of the system. In This Inevitable Ruin, Matt Dinniman doesn't just tell a story, he detonates one. This isn't your average dystopian fantasy. It's a blood-stained love letter to the players left behind, the NPCs who bleed, and the madness that blooms when the rules stop mattering. If you thought Dungeon Crawler Carl was brutal, This Inevitable Ruin is what happens when the gloves are off and the gods themselves are caught cheating. Buckle up. This one doesn't walk you into the abyss. It kicks you head first and asks you to enjoy the fall. Welcome to the Fungal Verse. In the wreckage of what was once a world, where spores fill the air and madness infects every breath, survivors cling to what little power and sanity they have left. The setting is grotesque, beautiful in its horror. The atmosphere is thick with decay and dread. And standing at the center of it all is not a hero, but a man barely holding on. Eric, an underdog in every sense. A man hardened by pain, shaped by loss, and pushed by a system that demands survival at the cost of everything else. Eric is not your typical protagonist. He's not a chosen one, and he's certainly not noble. But he's real. And in a universe where sentient mushrooms can flay, your mind and gods rewrite the laws of physics for fun. Real is about the best you can hope for. The story begins after the world has gone sideways. Civilization has crumbled. Society is now ruled by the game, an all-consuming system that turns life into a leveling experience, one where everything, including morality, can be traded for power. It's less of a game and more of a meat grinder wearing a tutorial screen. Eric is a rare class, a seer. He can glimpse the threads behind the veil, catch flickers of the truth in a world built on lies. But his power comes at a cost. The more he sees, the more he understands, and the closer he comes to unraveling himself. Sanity is a limited resource in this world, and Eric is spending his fast. But that's what makes him dangerous. The game wants compliance. Eric wants revenge. The narrative wastes no time. It throws you into the thick of a world where death isn't the end. Resurrection exists, but it's cruel, painful, and comes with penalties that warp the soul. Each character feels like they've clawed their way out of their own grave. Survivors aren't noble. They're desperate, broken, twisted by trauma, and mutated by the fungal system that watches everything. The stakes are high not just because characters die, but because when they return, they're never quite the same. One of the core strengths of This Inevitable Ruin is the way Dinniman blurs the lines between comedy and horror. There are moments of laugh-out-loud absurdity followed immediately by gut-wrenching darkness. A punchline becomes a panic attack. A joke about a sentient spore creature turns into a life-or-death negotiation with a being that doesn't understand mercy. Dinniman's mastery of tonal whiplash is unmatched. It keeps you off balance, makes you feel like anything can happen, and usually does. The world-building is grotesquely beautiful. Picture a biomechanical labyrinth overrun by fungal growths that pulse with malignant intelligence. Picture gods who are more like programmers corrupted by power, rewriting the rules of reality just to watch what happens. Picture sanity meters ticking down every time you read the flavor text on a cursed item. This isn't just a setting, it's a character in itself, alive, hungry, and always watching. The NPCs aren't filler either. They're aware. Some have memories they shouldn't. Some bleed when they shouldn't. Some remember dying again and again. The line between player and pawn has dissolved. And in that chaos, something ancient and malevolent stirs. The fungal god. Not a god of growth or renewal, but one of entropy, of collapse, of beauty found in decay. It doesn't want to rule, it wants to end. Eric's journey is less about rising in power and more about resisting collapse, not just physically, but spiritually. Every encounter costs him. Every victory feels like a loss. And yet, he presses on. Not because he's brave, but because quitting isn't an option. Along the way, he gathers allies, if you can call them that. A talking sword with a thirst for nihilism. A healer who can only repair wounds by stealing life from others. A rogue with a past so dark, even the game can't categorize it. None of them are good people, but they're all that stands between the world and the void. The dungeons in this book aren't just challenges. They're psychological warfare. Each one is uniquely twisted, designed to exploit fears and feed off pain. One dungeon requires players to sacrifice parts of themselves, literally. Another is built inside the rotting corpse of a god, its insides teeming with parasites that whisper secrets. The horror is surreal, imaginative, and deeply personal. Dinniman doesn't just want to scare you. He wants to infect your thoughts. But it's not just gore and madness. At the core of the story is a deeply human question. What do we become when the rules collapse? When power is the only currency and morality is optional, who do we choose to be? Eric's struggle isn't just external, it's internal. Every decision chips away at his identity. Is he still the man he was before the collapse? Or has he become something else? Something the game never predicted? And then there's the twist. Because just when you think you understand the stakes, Dinniman flips the table. Eric wasn't supposed to be part of the end game. He was a glitch, a leftover, a bug in the code. But now he's become something worse, something unpredictable. And the system doesn't like unpredictable. The fungal god takes notice. The narrative fractures. Time loops back on itself. Reality glitches. And suddenly, the battle isn't just for survival. It's for narrative control. You start to question if Eric is even the protagonist anymore, or if he ever was. The writing is sharp, fast-paced, and brutally efficient. There's no filler. Every sentence is either a punchline or a punch to the gut. Dinniman doesn't hold your hand. He expects you to keep up. But for those who do, the payoff is immense. You're rewarded not just with epic battles and clever twists, but with deep existential horror wrapped in gallows humor. The climax is devastating. Everything unravels. Friends betray. Systems crash. Sanity breaks. But in that chaos, there's a spark, not of hope, but of defiance. Eric doesn't win. Not really, but he doesn't lose either. He becomes something else, something the game can't control. A ruin, inevitable, beautiful, and in his fall, he sparks a new beginning. This inevitable ruin is not a happy book, but it's a necessary one. It's catharsis for those who've seen too much and felt too little. It's revenge for the broken, a hymn for the unchosen, a battle cry for those who understand that sometimes the only way to beat the system is to become the virus. Matt Dinniman has done it again. He's taken a tired genre and injected it with venom and poetry. This inevitable ruin is a masterpiece of horror fantasy LitRPG that refuses to play fair. It mocks tropes while mastering them. It's brutal. It's hilarious. It's unforgettable. And if you're ready to lose your mind, it's absolutely worth it. If you want to listen full audiobook for free, link in description.